watching the award-winning GHS-TV, Germantown Community Television, your hometown news and information station.
Welcome back. With us now is CPA Gus Wilson. We're talking about tax preparation. Before the break, Gus, we had gotten through parts of the home buyer's tax credit. I guess it's basically broken into 3 different segments depending on when you purchased your house or when you signed a contract for it. And we had just gotten into that last segment there that was from 11/9/09 to May 1 of 2010.
Right. And once again, you'll have to excuse me from reading from the list, but this is very complex. Most of this information is available, and we'll get into the meat, the stuff you really need to watch out for here in a second, but let's just burn through this one real fast. The change between, 11/9/09 to 11/10/09 was that the phase-outs changed. So essentially you can make more money and still qualify for the credit. And also, if you have lived in your house, even though you're not a first-time home buyer, but you lived in your house for the past 5 consecutive years out of 8, you can qualify for a first-time home buyer's credit of $6,500. And the neat thing about this one is that, it's you could see, it could affect a lot of different people, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to sell your old house, I guess. The new house has to be a primary residence, but if you were planning on retiring and moving to Florida and you wanted to keep your home up here for the kids or for a rental property, you could, in essence, buy a new primary residence, qualify for the $6,500, and still retain your old primary residence. And so there's some really neat things, and more people will qualify for this credit than you think. There's people who've had their first starter home and lived there for 5 years, people who are retiring, people who are transitioning from one job to the next in a different city and who are moving. So it's a pretty big deal, and it's really it's pretty business savvy too. It's going to hopefully drive a lot of home sales and make everyone a lot of money.
So what sort of proof do you have to have for that 5-year residency period?
Right. I know you and I talked about this for a while. There's forms that you have to file. It is form, is it 5405, which requires a signed settlement statement. And so if you haven't moved in, like we talked about, if you had a signed contract but hadn't moved in, they would need the sales contract. Or if you were having the house built, you would need a certificate of occupancy. So there are lots of ways that you have to prove that you are moving into this house and that you own it. Likewise, for the people who are qualifying for the $6,500 credit, they not only have to provide that proof, but they also have to provide proof that they lived in their past residence for those 5 consecutive years, either through tax records, insurance records, or some kind of form. And there's an additional form that they will have to file as well. You and I talked about before the meeting here that not only are you having to provide more paperwork, but if you are an e-filer, because of the new paperwork that you have to file, you're not allowed to e-file if you're claiming this house credit, which is, that's a big deal because, traditionally if you e-file and ask for a direct deposit, you can potentially receive your refund within 10 working days. Mm-hmm. If you're used to that and you're filing for the home buyer's credit, you can expect delays, essentially. I think I read in Kiplinger's, as a matter of fact, that they will not start processing these returns until mid-February, and they do not expect to see refunds of this credit until late March or even April. So, and that's just the first round. So, if they're anticipating thousands of people filing, you can imagine, it's just, there's going to be some delays.
Yeah, and I guess there's also some questions in there that, in the society we live in with divorce, that's going to create an even bigger issue with this.
Right, and if you were going through a divorce, I would like to think that you've already retained a lawyer, but there are very special considerations to be had as far as primary residence rules, home buyer's credits when it comes to divorcing.
Well, and I think one thing that I see a lot of times in the marriage dissolution agreements are that, this attorney is not giving tax advice, but it would be wise, if we've got any attorneys that are out there listening, that they go and grab a CPA and specifically ask questions about that home buyer's tax credit, because that could get them in their clients in a whole mess of trouble.
That's true, and I would think that the lawyer would be in discussion with the CPA or the tax preparer anyway, and so he could probably ask those pertinent questions at that time, or just a basic meeting to cover this. And it's like everything else, tax code and law stuff. It's really hard to go in unprepared, and it's always good to ask someone's advice or retain someone to help you with it. Just a couple more things on the home buyer's credit. One, I was listening to a local radio station on the way into work the other day, and someone called in and didn't quite understand the logistics of the home buyer's credit. It is a home buyer's credit. You have to buy a home to qualify for it. Mm-hmm. And I know that seems really basic, but it sounds like some people aren't understanding, because, I could look at my situation and say, well, I've lived in a home for 5 years. Why don't I qualify for the credit? Yes, I've met that part of the requirement. The next part of the requirement requires me to go out and purchase a new primary residence. And it's not a slam dunk $8,000 or $6,500. It is 10% of the sales price of the home. So it's a max of $8,000. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, it is interesting, because we have to go back so many times when I'm talking to clients just as you, and say to the client, well, this is the reason why this is in the tax code. It's to stimulate the housing market, and that's the whole thing with it.
That is the whole point. You're just trying to drive some money back in the housing market and try and prop the economy back up.
Well, we thank you for being here today, and our time is up for this edition of Legalese, and we'd like to thank our guest for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us and sharing his thoughts and insights. If you would like more information about Legalese or any other program on GHS TV, please refer to our website at www.ghstv.org. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us next month for more discussion on legal topics. Until then, I am Vince Perryman, and thank you for watching.